The movie kicks off with a search party in search for a couple who mysteriously went missing. Unknowingly to them, there was a weird-looking hole at the other end of the forest, into which some dogs had happened to fall, with no way out. Suddenly, the dogs saw a cave nearby and drank from it. Back to the search party, a guy managed to find the dogs, but they were just staring at each other in a weird-looking way. He took these dogs home, but still, the dogs maintained the same posture from earlier. Just then, one of them started making strange human sounds. The man's son heard the dogs barking non-stop, so he called his dad's attention to the barn. When the young man got to the barn, what he saw there was traumatizing, as the two dogs began to merge their body together. The scene then shifted to a guy named Tim, looking through his family photos, and just then, his girlfriend named Millie arrived to inform him that everyone is waiting for them. Once Tim was done, he came out to join his guests outside, and it turns out to be a send-off party, as Tim and Millie plan to move to the countryside and bid to take their relationship to the next phase of their lives. In a surprising twist, Millie proposed to Tim at the party. Tim tends to believe this was all a joke as he never saw this coming, while he stood still. So in big shame and embarrassment, Millie got back up since she got no response from her proposal. Although Tim replied yes afterwards, but it now looks more awkward. So later that night, Tim apologized to her for embarrassing her earlier in front of everyone, stating he didn't do it on purpose. However, Millie seems to have doubts about the sincerity of their love. She is of the opinion that they should split now as it won't be difficult, but Tim convinced her they are still in love. Although when they tried to sleep, Millie made a statement about some weird people looking at them, so when Tim looked towards the door, he found a mysterious lady crying. Quickly, he woke up only to find out it was all a dream. He then took a walk outside only to find Millie making some arrangements. So while they were both unpacking their things in the new apartment, Tim began to perceive a weird smell coming from upstairs, so he walked toward it to check where the source of the smell was coming from. Just then, he realized that the smell was coming from the ceiling, so he climbed a chair to check what it was. Fortunately, it was just a group of rotten rats tied together. This became a problem for Tim when he discovered one of the rats is still mysteriously alive. Although he waved this off as he didn't think anything much about it. Later that day, Millie got to her new job where she teaches elementary English. Then and there, she met Jamie, who was her co-teacher. He welcomed her into the school, and they became friends instantly. Jamie was throbbed on why someone of such caliber would choose to work here. However, during the conversation between them, Millie discovered that her and Jamie are actually neighbors, as he lives just opposite their apartment. In the evening, we discover Tim is an aspiring musician, and he practices every night before going to bed. The next morning, the couple embarked on a hiking journey around their new home. They stopped halfway, seemingly because they seemed to have taken the wrong way. As they were looking around, Tim sighted a weird-looking bell in the forest, which is placed strategically to lead people down a route. They proceeded with their journey, and after a long walk deep into the forest, they decided to return home, but unfortunately, they seem to have gotten lost in the process. Tim tried using his compass to find a way out, but this doesn't help out. So Tim suggests they kept on moving forward, but just then, he fell into a cave. Millie tried to pull him out as he hasn't fallen completely, but this only made them fall into this cave together. Luckily for them, they sustained no injuries. Millie tried calling for help, but there was no signal. Suddenly, they started to get some weird feelings that the place is crowded, and they seem not to be alone. So they tried looking for a way out, but to no avail. So they decided to camp there for the night. Sighting a pool nearby, the couple started feeling extremely thirsty, so Tim gave Millie the last water they had left, before then using his hands to drink from the strange pool inside the cave. After which, he collected more with his water bottle and drank till his full. While the two converse, Tim seems to be bothered, so Millie asked what the problem was, and he told her he couldn't stop thinking about the rotten rats, because it brings up some bad memories from his childhood. He told her how he walked into his parents' room when he was little, only to find his mom in a bad state, smiling weirdly at him, and this was due to the fact that she couldn't handle the fact that her partner had passed away, so her brain just snapped, as she couldn't process all. He also informed her that he still has nightmares of that day up till now, and that smell has since then have always haunted him. So after their long conversation, they both fell asleep, so while they were both asleep, a mysterious entity from the pool closed in on them. Luckily, Tim woke up as a result of this mysterious sounds, but suddenly, he started to breathe rapidly in fear. Once he looked up, he saw that the vine above him is following his exact breathing sequence, while Millie struggled to breathe. Fortunately, it was just a nightmare. The couple then tried to stand up, and in a plot twist, their legs got conjoined together like it was bound by a strong glue. Carefully, they managed to separate themselves. Afterwards, they climbed their way out of the cave. Unknowingly to them, their skin got torn from the separation. They eventually find their way back home together. Just then, Millie asked Tim to help her massage her shoulder, but while he went on with it, he started yearning for her. This made him lose focus after not realizing that he was squeezing Millie. Tim apologized before then going for a shower. On the other hand, Millie drove into town to get some groceries. All of a sudden, Tim fell unconscious inside the bathroom. The further Millie drove away from him, he experienced mysterious episodes where he is overly drawn to her. Like every single move she makes affects him, just like they were one person in two separate bodies. He started shaking uncontrollably in the shower, while his head cracked open the tiles. However, he eventually regained consciousness. Tim, who is now in serious fear, goes to visit a doctor, who in return diagnosed him of mental illness caused from being in an unfamiliar environment. During their conversation, the doctor informed him about a couple from earlier who got missing a few months back. Back at home, Tim begins to research about the couple who got missing, and just then, Millie walked in. The two went through their own profile and discussed how basic life is and how far they have come. Suddenly, Millie's coworker Jamie shows up at their home to welcome them to the neighborhood. During dinner, they told Jamie of their horrific experience at the cave. Jamie told them that the cave was once a chapel for a New Age church until it mysteriously collapsed years ago. He believed it was a result of the bad weather then. Tim drew Millie closer and they started kissing afterwards, but their lips joined together in the process, and Millie thought it was Tim who bit her. So he tried to explain to her regarding his strange feelings, but Millie shrugged them off. So as they were both sleeping, Millie turned on the lights to discover Tim choking on her hair, which was terrifying. Immediately, Millie tried pulling her hairs out, but to no avail as it was only choking Tim more. So after much effort, he was finally able to pull it out, as they both stared at each other in fear. The next morning, Tim prepared to go for his gig, but Millie doesn't support this, as she feels he needs to rest after what had happened last night. However, Tim wasn't willing to cancel. So Millie drove him to the train station, and before he left, she told him to take his time and he shouldn't bother coming back home tonight so he can spend time with his friends, hoping it would help him out. So as she drove off, Tim started having the same episodes all from earlier again. As farther she drove, the more his hallucinations increased uncontrollably. Due to this occurrence, he missed the train he was supposed to board. Tim couldn't help staying too far away from Millie, so he forcefully dragged himself to the school where Millie teaches. Millie rushed out immediately and hurriedly took him to a bathroom stall. There, Tim couldn't help himself, so he started getting passionate towards her. After they were done, their body got stuck together, and they found it challenging to separate themselves. As they were at it, someone spotted them and ran off instantly so they wouldn't notice. Quickly, Millie forcefully separated herself from him, which hurt pretty badly. The kid who saw them earlier called Jamie's attention to the situation, but Jamie handled it perfectly well and sent the kid back to class. Millie and Tim got back home, and immediately, she furiously vented her anger towards Tim for getting her into such mess. This caused them to get into a heated argument, which made Millie to walk out. She then went straight to Jamie and bid to apologize for what happened earlier. The two had a pretty good conversation, and just then, Millie opened up to him about her relationship problems with Tim. Jamie encourages her not to let go of her partner, whom he referred to as her other half. Millie inquired if he was the only one living here, so he told her about his relationship with his seemingly deceased husband. Jamie went to bring a tape of his wedding, and suddenly Millie saw Tim peeping at them from outside. Later that night, Millie appears to be floating and moving as much as Tim is moving until he opens the door and has to slap her awake. The two discuss about what happened, and Tim tried explaining what has been happening to them ever since they left the cave. However, Millie thinks it is ridiculous. Tim suggested to go back to the cave to get answers, but instead of supporting him, Millie broke up with him instead. Just as she leaves, her blood on the table drew closer to him. That night, they decided to sleep separately from each other. So a few minutes later, Tim woke up finding himself moving towards Millie's room, and his body started contorting in an unnatural way. This force pulled them together, and once they touched each other, they felt a little relieved, but at the cause of their hands fusing, which was immensely painful. Millie reached for Tim's muscle-relaxing pills in the drawer. So quickly, they chewed as many as possible to stop their limbs from contorting. Once this was done, they tried pulling themselves out, and just then, they lost consciousness. The next morning, Tim woke up to see Millie tying him to a chair, and their arms fused together. She gives him whiskey and then uses a buzzsaw to cut the skin between their arms. After separating themselves, Millie decides to drive to the hospital, but unfortunately, she realized she left her keys at Jamie's house, so she went to get it, while Tim went back into the cave to find answers. Back to Millie, she finds out that Jamie was nowhere to be found. So while walking around, she sees a wedding video being played of two men, one who looks sort of like Jamie. The men are seen undergoing a ritual where they are fused together. There and then, Jamie reveals himself as being a fusion of both men, stating it is the beginning of something wonderful. Tim, on the other hand, discovers other people who are fused to the wall, along with Carrie and Simon, who have now fused into a freakish monstrosity. He grabs a knife and slashes their fingers off to get away from them. Meanwhile, Jimmy explained that being part of the cult literally brings people together to become whole, and he hopes for Tim and Millie to do the same thing. He then slashes Millie's wrist, but she hit him in the face, causing him to split into separate people. Millie runs back to the house and meets Tim as he prepares to cut himself, in order for them not to turn to whatever he saw earlier. Just then, the force drew them yet again, so as they are pulled closer together, Tim mimics Millie's from the beginning of the movie and finally acknowledges how much he really loves her. Millie shows her wrist wound and accepts her death in Tim's arms. Tim then carried her into the house, where she later gained consciousness to find Tim, who willingly fused his arm with hers to stop the bleeding. After a terrifying long process, the two then completely fused their body together. Later that evening, Millie's parents arrive at the house for Sunday dinner. But when the door opens, they are approached by a well-looking person who resembles both Tim and Millie. The movie then came to an end. Kindly subscribe for more horror movie recap like this. Thanks for watching and goodbye.